For more on this, let's bring in from Liverpool, United Kingdom, Francesco Rizzuto. He's a professor of law at the University of East London. Professor, great to have you here with us on TRT World. I want to talk about this proposal by President Volodymyr Zelensky. It seems that it has the approval of the United States, but President Zelensky says that one of the most sensitive issues that still remain are territorial issues. But one thing that stands out for me is the fact that as part of this new proposal, President Zelensky is still insisting on becoming a member of NATO in the future, so that NATO ambition is still alive. So for Russia, of course, territorial issues are sensitive, but at the same time, NATO ambition of Ukraine is also sensitive. So what's your navigation through this?
Happy Christmas Day, or happy festivities to you all. Look, if the Russians have excluded and the Americans have accepted that the Ukraine will not be joining NATO. They can join the European Union at some stage, but not NATO. So that's a non-starter. As far as the Russian position is concerned on the latest territorial proposal, in other words, that the Donbass becomes a sort of economic free zone with both sides pulling out their troops. I mean, I wish that it would be acceptable to the Russians because it would stop the slaughter. But frankly, unless Trump has something on Putin, I just don't see Putin accepting this because it is completely opposed to what his fundamental objectives were, not only to neuter, if you like, to neutralize the Ukraine, but also to take the Donbass, which incidentally, apparently, is part of the Russian Federation now because they had a referendum, if you recall, a couple of years ago. So it's a non-starter. And just to add, the spokeswoman for the foreign ministry, Maria Zakharova, has basically said, yes, this is all very interesting, but we still have a long way to go. So in effect, they're playing for time. They know they have an advantage on the ground. So why rush?
Right. And to that point, in terms of the latest attacks, it seems to me that there has been an escalation, especially when it comes to Ukrainian counterattacks. We are seeing more and more attacks on Russian energy infrastructure. So what do you think is Ukraine's motivation behind these latest attacks?
I think that Ukraine's motivations behind the attacks is to try and knock out as much of the war-making capacity, in terms of fuel at least, that the Russians possess, to hurt them as much as they possibly can and to demonstrate they can hit them, whether it's their submarines or whether it's their power stations or their fuel generating capacity. So that's the objective, to basically keep reminding the Russians that they're still there and they can hurt them. Obviously, the Russians will continue to grind forward, and sadly, many Russians and Ukrainians will be killed in this. But the Russian strategy is clear, and the counter strategy of the Ukrainians is also clear.
Fascinating insights. Professor Francesco Rizzuto, thanks very much for joining me here on TRT World. As always, really appreciate your taking out the time, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all you all.